Is Rollei Ortho 25 the right film for you? I wanted to do some more film comparisons to Tri-X like I began earlier in the year. But to keep things consistent, rather than do them every now and then, I went ahead and got 49 different film stocks, everything I could get in 35mm from B&H and Freestyle. So unless they were out of stock, I got a roll of it. Now, if this part of the video seems familiar, it's because I'm using this portion of the video for all 49 of them rather than record it 49 times. So if you want to skip ahead to the H&D curves or the prints, time codes are right over here. For those of you that haven't seen this part of the video before, here's what I've done. So I wanted to use each film with the exact same shot, which is a headshot of me with a Kodak Gray Card Plus, which happens to have a red, blue, and green patch, a cyan, magenta, yellow patch, and then a dark and a neutral flesh tone. Then, with those shots taken, I bracketed every shot in third of a stop so that we can make sure we have a negative of equal shadow density to the base target film of Tri-X. Now, the reason I use Tri-X is because it's just been around for a long time and it's a very popular film. So it's a good base film to compare everything to. Then, once everything was developed, which was developed in D-76 at stock for the manufacturer's recommended time, I printed everything on Ilford using the exact same aperture, contrast settings, developer, and everything. The only thing I changed was my exposure time, and that was to make sure that I compensated for any base fog variation from one film stock to another. Other than that, everything was left the same so that we can have a comparison of just the qualities of the film. Now, there's going to be some differences in contrast, especially on the high end, and that's because the manufacturers getting their development time may not have used the same target that Kodak used for Tri-X. And that's okay. We're not looking at the overall contrast for everything. What we're really looking at is grain characteristics, tonality, how the film treats the shadows versus the highlights, that sort of thing. And we're looking at spectral sensitivity, thus the Gray Card Plus, rather than just a regular Gray Card. So we're going to go ahead and look at H&D curves, which if you saw one of my earlier videos on sensitometry, I like to use pen and paper and make my graphs. However, my wife was really ready to make sure I was done with this project. So she put everything into a spreadsheet for you all. So even though I don't like them, I want to show them to you thanks to her. Then we're going to go ahead and look at the prints side by side with the same print made from Tri-X. And from there, you can decide if you like the film and if you want to go and use it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the curves, and then we'll go to the prints. Again, we have Tri-X in blue, Rollei in red. Now, we don't really have any flattening of our toe. That could be just a very good response on the toe, but most likely we are slightly overexposed. Other than that, we have an excellent straight line of our graph. It looks like it could possibly be shouldering at the top. We do have a little bit of a dip in near the top, but we do kind of have a corresponding dip with Tri-X at that part. That means separation is just not going to be perfect or perfectly linear, but overall it's a fairly good, straight, smooth line. So let's go ahead and look at the prints and see what that looks like in the real world. Here we have our Rollei Ortho 25 and our Kodak T-Max, or Tri-X 400 over here. And overall image quality, not too bad. It's underdeveloped, as we can see, where we did not develop a full white. We do have our orthochromatic response, as we would expect, looking at our red being almost as dark as the black. So almost full underexposure on the red part. We are not, however, brighter on the red. So as opposed to saying it's a blue sensitive film where the red would expect it to be very bright, it's almost more like it's just a minus red film where it doesn't pick up any red, because the green is slightly under the blue, but not tremendously. Green and yellow came out about the same, but our cyan and magenta actually came out lighter than blue. So take from that what you will. Now granted, over here they did come out lighter than blue as well. In fact, I would say these tones almost came out the same for both films. This one almost the same for both films. It's these three, no, actually these four, that came out different. But that's about it on the grand scale. Because of that underexposure, or not underexposure, exposure is actually pretty good at 25, but under development, we have very flat, low contrast skin tones. Part of that is because the red is so underexposed, the red in my skin, as we've seen from films that are very red sensitive, that lightens my skin quite a bit. But in this case, we also just have flat out underdevelopment. Let's get in a little bit closer, see what that grain structure and sharpness are like. All right, so the shot obviously looks very low contrast as it was not developed fully, as stated many times already. But if you look at the grain on the background, it is very fine grain compared to 400 speed Tri-X. This is a pretty good 25 speed example. Very fine, very sharp grain. Here on the shoulder in the shaded side, we can see we are getting nice fine detail. We are getting that grain pattern in the smooth tones, and pretty good gradation from dark to mid-tones in the shoulder fabric. Here on the lighted side of the fabric, or lighted side of the shoulder, we can see we are getting nice sharp lines in the ribbed collar. We're getting the stitching down the shoulder pretty well. We're seeing the texture of the fabric pretty well, but I feel like we were getting better high resolution with some of the copy films that we saw, well, or will see, depending on when we get all of these put out. The 25 speed film, we are seeing some of the fabric pattern in here, but I feel like we got better performance from a couple of other examples of films than this, even though they are technically a little bit faster. Not much. This is 25. In case this hasn't already come out by the time I publish this one, but the Adox HR50 actually came out as a 32 speed film and had higher resolution for the fabric. So not quite as sharp and crisp as that, even though it's a little bit slower. But those are high resolution films, and this is not. This is just an ortho film. All right, here in the face, we are getting nice sharp detail. Pores in the skin are coming out well, hairs, all that sort of stuff. We're just a little low contrast, but again, that's easy to remedy by developing longer. But if you wanted an orthochromatic film and a slow speed, this one's certainly going to do it. When all of the ortho films have been individually published, I'm going to make a video showing all of them side by side. So that kind of gives us a better idea of which one you might want to choose. But we do have, I feel, technically we have 2 choices, but realistically we have 3 choices in film. And that would be this one, the Ilford Ortho 80, if you want something much faster, and the Forania P30. So if you're looking for an ortho film, any of those 3 will work. And once we look at them side by side, you can choose which one might work best for you. Well, that's going to do it for this film. Thank you for watching. If you would like to help support this channel so we can do more comparisons and get materials for more videos, then you can go to my merchandise page down in the link below. And until next time, thanks again.